but you're welcome to ask any question anytime. And let's go ahead and, if you're ready for it, come into a standing position with feet about somewhere between hip to shoulder distance wide and begin the spin. So we start to twist and turn across ourselves. And you'll notice things. You will feel it everywhere from the shoulders through the spine, maybe up into the neck, maybe down to the wrists, maybe into the leg and knees. Whatever it is we're feeling, we're going to try and notice, does it begin to change in a positive way as we continue the twisting action, or does it begin to let us know that maybe it doesn't want us poking on us like that? So just back and forth we go. And once we've done this, and you can continue on if you're still getting satisfied actions from this, just continue on, but then at some point we'll switch to the arms in a different direction. And this is moving the arms through different planes of movement, which are typically controlled by different muscles, and they stretch ligament structures. So it's just a fibrous system of things that move in different directions and that react to different angles. And then we're going to incorporate the whole body into catching our balance. We bend the knees, we rock our way back. I usually take it all the way to the point that I lose my balance. Keeping the knees bent, we rock our weight forward, and again, I just completely lose my balance. So back and forth we go, losing balance and just stimulating that body effect and the brain. 1 foot forward, we're going to rock back on the heels and then forward on the toes. So back and forth. Great. And then the other foot in the forward position. And so we just wake ourselves up body wide with the balance work. Now let's get some of the muscles we're going to be using activated. So standing with the feet about hip to shoulder distance, take a breath in. As you begin your exhale, press your hands together. Feel the contraction, take it up. Inhale. And we'll do that again. Push those hands. We'll emphasize one side more and then come across, transitioning through the fibers. And inhale. And we'll do that again. And then we'll take it the other direction. And we'll do it again. Now bring your shoulders up and squeeze together the shoulder blades, reaching the arms back. Exhale. And then let the shoulders go forward, taking in a deep inhale. And then again, reach, squeeze back, exhale. Forward shoulders, inhale. And we'll do it once more. Reach that, squeeze back, and exhale. And then we'll release that apart. Standing with your feet shoulder to hip distance wide. Push the feet away from each other. This stimulates action and stability. Belly in, chest up, shoulders down. Push into the leg. Tilt, lift the arm up into the stretch. Stretch that side, inhale. Exhale, bring yourself up and out, and then press out again. Belly in, chest up, shoulders down. Make your tilt. Lift the ribs, the arm, the chest up. Inhale. Exhale, lift up and come out. And then widen your stance, bend your knees. Reach across your body. Gentle stretch, but it's going to be in multiple places. Just sort of hold it there, breathing. Go across the other way. See where the distribution of tension is. Deeply breathe. First side, reach across. Inhale into those ribs. Open them wide. Exhale, release it. Reach across. Inhale into the ribs. Open wide. Exhale. Come on back to center. Bend at the knee and come up. Okay, now a little bit of action in the seat muscle in the back of the leg. Weight stays back at the heels for this squat. The arms go forward. We come down. Don't go down very deeply at first. Just measure your way into it. Exhale, coming up. So the arms are going to give us a chance. The knees and feet should be pointing the same direction. You're just finding out what are my legs feeling like right now. You make it a little harder just by crossing the arms and keep the weight at your heels and just control the depth of action. Always weight stays on the heels. And then of course when we do things that take the arms upward, this emphasizes back extension, and it's going to make it a little more difficult. But remember, we drop nearly straight down, that chest stays lifted, it doesn't tilt dramatically forward. And that has stimulated circulation, it's warmed the body, it's got us ready, and it's good because we need to work with our legs. And for the first round, I'd like to use, instead of the deadlift, I'd like to use a good morning because it has a lot of the actions of the deadlift, and yet it gets my hamstrings into more of a stretch. So we're going to place a bar, if you have it, behind here on the nice muscly part, not on the bony area, or you can hold in front. And if you don't have a bar, you can just cross your arms in front of you. And stand, so I've got my feet, mat distance wide. And before I do anything, I just push my hips backward and I push my hips forward. So I'm hinging at the hip, hinging at the hip. It goes a little forward, it goes backward, and the weight stays on my heel in both directions. And so this next time I hinge at the hips, I come forward, my legs practically straight, and there's the hamstring stretch. Now push your heels outward, like stretching apart the mat, and push your pelvis forward. And we'll do it again. We tilt forward, heels press out, push the pelvis forward. Don't let the weight travel onto your toes. It may try, but you're creating that pressure, you're pushing your pelvis forward. We're after about 10 repetitions, and you can do less and you can do more. Feel, it's that if you're not pushing your heels away from each other as you're coming up, you might be gripping your back or your abs. You might not be hinging at the hips. You might be engaging a part of your body that doesn't need to be engaged in this. We're trying to make this the back of the leg. Stretching, yes, but working. So you realistically could feel it in two directions, the stretch. And then from the stretch, the long muscle is engaging, and although it's not a stretch when it's contracting, it might be about the same amount of sensation. So work with that. It's a technique, and so is the deadlift, a technique that we're trying to work, we're trying to gain skill and ability with our techniques. So it's okay if right now you're, not so sure that you have the technique down. Just work your way through it. Probably after a few repetitions, you'll say, yeah, there it is, and you'll start to get it. All right, when you're ready to, after we've done the deadlift, we're going to do something that is it's a crawl. And I'm going to start with the concept of a bear crawl, and I'm going to show it here at the wall. And so in the bear crawl, it's the opposite arm and leg. So we're just going to wake up our brain. So opposite arm and leg, come up. And so at the wall is a very reasonable way to do this. And you're lifting your legs, so it's not devoid of physical effort. But if I do this as the crawl in sort of a downward dog position, so I do bend my knees and I have my hands comfortably wide, so you get into a comfortable position. And it's the opposite arm and leg, so this is going to be my left hand and my right foot stepping forward, my right hand and my left foot. And then I proceed forward, much like a little puppy, crawling forward, and then I'm going to move backwards to the light of my little boy right here. So that crawl is quite activating. Oh, which one? You're so strong. You crawl them all the time, my little bear. And so you do that forward and back. And this is not something necessarily that you say, well, I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe that would be really awesome if you were doing 10 of them that way, 5 forward and 5 back. You'll feel some activation definitely in those legs, probably in the arms. Be careful of your wrists. And at first, your body might try and shift the same side forward, and that's going to tilt you, and you're not going to be successful doing that very easily. Also, avoid in your crawl, avoid taking a movement and then following through with the other movement. Oh, I see. So that you're trying to make both sides, left and right, move exactly at the same time. So you're balanced on the other side, and that's a really nice core engagement with that. Hey, Falcon, come here. I know. Oh, you're so helpful. What is so helpful out here? There you go, boy. That's my boy. Good boy. All right, so I got the lovely distracting puppy out of the room. Okay, so we crawl, and of course at the end of that we're like, oh, heart rate went up, and that's really great to have that high intensity interval right there to get us into that frame. Now, we're going to calm things down a little bit, and this is a good one. We're going to do this from a standing position. So grab a weight. This is a bicep hammer curl, and I'm standing with the weight on one side because the weight might pull me toward that side, or I might pull against it and I'll offline myself, but I want to find my center. I'm going to bend my knees a little bit and just standing nice and rugged, although I'm having to engage my core at least lightly to keep from tilting or to keep from overreacting. Very slowly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're doing one side. Now, here's the thing. If you're finding this is particularly fatiguing and you know that the weight you're using is a reasonable weight for yourself, you might want to do a certain number on one side and then early switch to the second side. And then switch back again and complete the 10 repetitions. So there's a lot of different methods to do this. I am keeping my elbow right here. All right, I'm keeping my arm right connected to my body so that I'm not stimulating a lot of other shoulder area actions. I'm letting this be something that's affecting the forearm because of the grip and the upper arm, the bicep muscle. So we're doing this again and again. Now, fatigue should be a part of what we're doing. And if you don't ever feel fatigue, you might be going too fast. It's always a possibility, always a likelihood that the body will speed us up. Or it's too light a weight. And if you don't have another weight to use and you're just not feeling any fatigue at all, then just go even slower and fatigue will get to you, no doubt. If you're fatiguing out really quick, let's say you don't even get to the halfway point and your arm is fatiguing, you might have done something yesterday that's just leaving your arm very fatigued. So still, you'd switch to a lighter weight perhaps, so you don't do as intensive an action. When you're ready, switch to your other side, bring the arm in, core up, and create the action. So, lighter weights, if you're feeling fatigue very quickly. Heavier weights only after you've slowed things down and still don't feel an increase of fatigue. When we go slow, more of the fiber gets involved, so that's eating up more oxygen, and that's that lactic acid that builds up when there's a lack of available oxygen to power the energy, so it creates energy in another way. So it's wrong, and sometimes we've disrupted things, or we've made it to where we didn't repay all the energy debt that was in an area, and so it quickly shifts back into that lactic acid building. That would be us being a little fatigued. And I think that that's a fairly common thing in people who are physically active, is that we tend to overtrain. We tend to work a little too much. So, as I said, pay attention to what you're feeling, because it means something. It means something. I've been asked here recently, what if I wanted to use a different weight on one side versus the other? Sure. There's a lot of reasons for that. But when we're using one arm at a time, not when both arms are engaged at the same time, because that will throw the body off a little bit more. Okay, we worked our biceps. Now we're going to work our back extension. And I'm going to start us off. Now, if you don't want to come down to the floor, and there could be reasons for that, you can do a back extension by pulling upward and just leaning your pelvis gently toward the wall, just still pulling your chest upward. And then just coming out of that and then pulling upward and leaning your pelvis toward the wall. Okay, so that's a back extension, but I'm going to duplicate that effect by doing a low cobra down here. So I'm going to get onto the floor. I bring the elbows close to the body and the pelvis is pushed down, pulling my body toward the front of the mat. And as I put pressure, especially in the pubic bone area, I vacuum my belly up off the floor. Exhaling, I lift my chest. So on my way down, I'm inhaling. I'm making sure I've got a nice space between the shoulder blades. And then I'm exhaling, belly's pulled in first as I continue to pull forward, pulling forward constantly. When you push the pelvis down into the floor effectively, what happens is your seat muscles naturally tighten. And they engage in a way that's very appropriate and protective of the lower back region. So this is a great way to create back extension. It's simple, it's light, it's great for a round one action. It's great if we have some back issues. And you just create a very slow, focused with the breathing, methodical. I tell you, when you pull that belly up away from the floor, it changes this dramatically. Like you set the stage. When you pull effectively forward, you might need to arrange your arms a little different than mine, maybe outward more, maybe forward more, but once you get that nice pull, once your belly's pulling in, you can create this nice engagement of your back muscles, and there's no neck crunch effect in the low back, which is really nice. Now, we've done the extension, and our follow-through is absolutely the opposite thing. It is the crunch, and I'm going to show it at the wall, and I'm going to show it at the floor. How do we do a crunch? I'm going to show it without any gadgets. That's the word. I was thinking supplements, but with any gadgets at all. So at the wall, I pull upward, I lean a little bit, and then I look forward, I bend the knees, and I round back. Ribs toward navel, tuck under the tailbone. You lift those heels if you want it to be stronger. There's two sections of the rectus abdominis. The first section, ribs toward navel. The second section, tucking under tailbone or pubic bone toward the navel until the back is nicely rounded. And we're after that effect. Here at the floor, now there's an interesting way, if I can hold my arms like this as I come down, although you gotta have some extra padding under the elbows, it can really stabilize the shoulders. So I'm gonna come down into a sphinx position, holding my arms. You could have them stretch forward or like this, but I'll do this position. And we pull forward, and then we're ready. We look down, we crunch the ribs toward the navel, and then we tuck the tailbone, and I can come up a little bit, but I'm not really trying to lift the pelvis up. I'm trying to tuck the tailbone under. So we pull forward. Now, if I just did the upper half, it would just bring me to the region of the pelvis. Doing the lower half is where I'm trying to round the back. And so I want to think about this as if something's right in the center of my spine and it's pulling it up toward the ceiling. And the way I make my spine lift is to round and shorten the front. So I'm flattening my back. That's another way to refer to it. You know, it's important that I say things in multiple different terms, because one of those terms might key you into exactly the action, the movement that is ideal for you. So trying to get that exact term is what we're after. We really want to have that focus. What is it that we're trying to do? And in this situation with the abdominal region, we're trying to shorten the front of our body in order to engage the rectus abdominis muscles. So we're doing that right now without any gadgetry, because that's our fallback in case we don't have some of the things I show in the second and the third round. All right, and it done well, you're going to feel it right there, right in the belly. And then we're going to need a relatively appropriate weight for the wrist and something to sit on, which I'm going to use a chair, but you can use a physio ball too. And instead of using the same weight that I used for my bicep, I come down in weight a little bit. Now I'm going to sit, and I'm going to be holding this like a hammer, and the bar of the weight and my forearm bones should be lining up all the time, lining up. I'm going to lean onto my knees with my elbow there, and the other arm is just going to make sure that the movement only occurs at the wrist. I tilt down, which is very easy, the weight helps me, and it is the lift up that I'm after. Now, when we lift up, we want to lift up with as much line of weight bar to the bones of our forearm without some sort of a twist or a turn. So I don't want to just, roll this up. It's really that, you can roll the wrist, you can sort of twist your wrist back and forth, not the muscle we're trying to target. Instead, we're trying to get the muscle, especially right here, associated with the thumb control, and gently pulling that thumb structure away from the little finger side of the hand. And this is very important for if you have some arthritis in your thumb already developing, or if you would prefer not to develop. This can be a gentle enough exercise that most people can do it, and is going to strengthen the hand, strengthen the wrist, and those muscles are all located here in the forearm. That's what we're feeling, is that forearm action. And this one for round one, I put it in here because it's very simple, very, very easy to do one. And then we're ready. We take it to side two when you're ready. When you're ready, bar and bone lined up, tilting down, only the wrist moving, not the elbow. When I'm leaning forward, I'm making sure to stretch my spine to pull forward, and my spinal joints are like beads of a chain, just sinking down. So there's like a wire that is suspending those beads, and they are just pulled by gravity toward the front of the body. And this is really good to stretch. Because my arms are on my legs, I can brace and create a slight forward movement, nice broadness between the shoulder blades as I'm doing this. And so right now, it's a good recovery position for the spine to decompress it so we can get ready for other exercises when we begin our round two, which is about to happen. Very good. So we end our round with something that is calming but also elongating. So we're ready now for the second round. So we're ready. And we're going to begin it. We did a good morning in the first round. I'm going to use the bar, an empty bar, to talk about the actions of a deadlift. You're welcome to use weights if you already say, I know the actions, or you think, I know, I'll know them really quickly. I'm going to have my arms forward. So in a good morning, I have my bar here. In this, I have my arms here. And I'm putting myself where my hands are going to always be on the outside of the legs, no matter where they are, so they're not going to be conflicting. They're on the outside of the legs. I push the hips back, just like in the good morning. Weight on the heels, hips push back, hinge at the hips, come down, and the arms just hang. Now, part two, very important. Bend the knees and lift the chin. And then part three, press the heels and push your hips back up. Now, when I see people do it, they often slide from part two to part three very quickly, but I want you to make it a little bit dramatic in each position. So it's like part 1, 2, 3. Bend the knees, part 2, 2, 3. Part 3, 2, 3. And if you do it like that, you're going to get a beautiful rhythm established. But don't slide from one to the other with, don't lack completing one and, oh my goodness, lift the chin up. Lift that chin up. So here we are. We're looking down first. Bend the knees. Now look forward. Press those heels. Now come up. 3 distinctive phases of this. Don't get sloppy. Don't slide from one into the other and eliminate the phase. Stay with that phase. Gain the action, because each of them need their own focus. Now, if you were going to do it instead of with a bar with weights, the weights would be held to the outside of the leg. And because the arms are just, holding the weights, you could potentially use a heavier weight with this. And so, the downward tilt, the bend, the look forward, the press up, and that pelvis look forward, seat muscles gripped. So here it is again. Here's those arms just hanging, knees bend, look forward, press heels. Up we go from the forward position, tilting down, arms are just hanging, bend the knees, look forward, press those heels, up we go. And so that's about the speed, and that's the transition line. One thing, then the other thing, then the third thing. And then it'll be, when it's done well, it's just a sight to behold when someone is doing the linkage, when everything does, and we hinge at the hips and we're not using our back to hoist us up. It's really great, and it's one of the reasons that it is a very traditional weight training method, because when done properly, it targets the areas that we want to target, back of the leg there. Nice. Okay, now For round one, we did the bear crawl, and you could do the crawl like this on the wall or at the floor. But I'll show you also the gorilla crawl. In the gorilla, our hands pull away, and then we hop up with our feet. And so that's the wall version of the gorilla. And believe me, hopping up off your feet, it's an effort. But here at the floor, the gorilla, you got to manage. I'm putting my feet about the width of the mat. I'm bending my knees, and it's somewhat like a downward dog. But I've got to teach myself that when I want to lift my feet, the weight's firmly on my flat hand. And when I want to lift my hands, both hands come up at the same time, and I rock back to the heels. So I'm lifting my toes back to my heels. Now, if I want to go forward, then I hop a little bit, hop a little bit, hop a little bit, and then if I want to go backward, and this is one of those that you'll do the lightest amount and you'll say, oh my God, who developed the lactic acid factory right here in my legs? It's a very high intensity interval. It's lovely just for what we're needing to do. And again, whatever you want your count to be, I hop forward 5 times, I hop backward 5 times, that's 10. Okay. Or you try to do a couple forward, couple back, and then rest, and then do some more. I see sometimes people, and I understand, but try and be weight backward enough that both hands can lift. And make sure that you're flat and comfortable with those hands before you lift up. Don't be in a hurry. You can hop greater distances once you get the hang of that. But like I say, it's like, oh, legs are working because we're literally hopping upward with our body weight. We're leaping upward. It's more than half our body weight when we lift up like that. So it's like, that's it. The legs are working pretty hard for that. So it's a good workout, good cardiovascular and good leg workout. There's stuff going on with the arms too. So that's why I say wall version if you're feeling stress in the wrist or the hands. And after we've done that high intensity interval, it's time to work our bicep muscles again. So this one we're going to be doing from seated position. I like to use a chair so that I have a very stable position. And this is a concentration curl. So we're sitting, and instead of having the arms right beside us as we did in the hammer curl, the arms to the chest are going to be slightly forward. Although we're not going to hold the arm like this, we're going to lean forward until the arms are forward of the body like so. So my arm's going to hang down forward of my body. My palm's going to turn upward. The other arm's like a brace. And again, I'm using that elongated spine position. And that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And undo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. And so now with the palm turned upward, there's less of our forearm, and it's more of the bicep. The muscle isolation is a little greater. So that means there's a little bit more happening in a single muscle instead of partnering out. And there's still partners. Everything from posture of our shoulder to position of our back is part of the partnership here. And any of those things could thwart us, right? But we're just going through it and working on strengthening a very valuable muscle to us. We bend our elbows, bringing our hand toward our body so much in our life that we must maintain our ability to do this. And making ourselves stronger than we need to be for our daily life is one of the best ways to avoid issue or injury. All right. So even though we use this kind of bending all the time, we don't do it under this kind of load. And so that's what we're trying to maximize our load so that we get better, stronger. Now you'll do one side, or like I say, you could switch back and forth more, and then you'll brace and come forward on the other side, palm up. And it's nice and slow and smooth. This is really good for the shoulder itself, because we're forward, and this position right here, hanging, is a decompression of the shoulder joint itself. So if you're having some shoulder issues, you can hang the arm for a moment or two. Just let the weight be right there, and just let the arm go completely passive before you begin the next one. Remember that if you're ahead of me, you're doing things faster than I'm switching, just do some more of what we've done, or if you can anticipate what's coming next, you're always welcome to move ahead or do something else that you know that's not even part of our routine. But yeah, you could also just rest. Okay, good. So when you finish out both sides to your satisfaction, then let's get ready for some more back extension. And I'm going to show, again, I like having certain things that we can do without any devices around, any equipment other than the floor. And this is very true of the Cobra. Now we did a lower Cobra, and remember, Cobra could also be done at the wall. There's a nice Cobra position, always pulling upward at the wall. But down here at the floor, we pull forward, all right? So we got this nice elongation of the spine. Oops, must be lower. Pull forward, push down the pubic bone, pull in the belly, and then the back comes up. Now, that's fine, but your back might be able to lift you more if it just had more of an angle. And so you can take the arms more outward and forward. I end up with my arms about level with the shoulder, but it is a very individual thing. Now, you must always pull forward as you push the pubic bone down, broad between shoulder blades, pull in the belly, and on an exhale, come up. And if you want to come up higher, you lift your elbows, but you're pulling toward the front of the mat. So it's a nice extended position. And because I'm pulling forward, that means that my spine is not being compressed. Now, I do have to limit how high I lift up, because it's always possible to jam ourselves, especially if we're not using all of the control features, which are push the pelvis down, pull the belly in, pull the body forward. But this is a perfectly fine way to do it. If you're committed to lifting those elbows up, your arms are going to be working a bit. And you're nominally higher. It's not like we went from, extremely low, so the arms lower. You're still lifting up. The arms higher. You're lifting up more, it's true. But we don't have a large range of motion when it's only the spine. What we see in the back then has a lot of look created by the posture of the arms and the legs. But the back in its extended position is not an extreme extension. And what we're trying to do, again, beads on a chain there, we're trying to elongate them so each part of the angle is the exact same effort. So it looks big, but not because some area is taking a really sharp curve. So watch out for those sharp curves. That's where the joints stick together and compress each other. We don't want that. But here's the good news. If we did get a little bit of that, and it's hard to avoid when we're first training, we're going to follow through with the crunch. Now, I showed the crunch at the wall and the crunch at the floor, and now I'm going to show a couple of devices here that we could use. One of them is the physio ball, and a lot of people do have a physio ball. This happens to be 55 centimeters, a little small one. Might be perfect for you to sit on. For me, it's just a little short, but it's ideal for what I want to do. I'm going to come onto this ball, start in a standing position, because I want the ball to be under my knee. So I'm way off the back of the mat. I want my hands on the mat. I come forward, and I'm not in the right position yet. I've got to move myself forward more. And there we are. Knees are on the ball, and I pull my knees forward, and I push back. Now, I don't have to leave my hands down like that. I can come into a forearm plank position and pull forward and push back. And that's a real good, especially if we can just round my back a little bit. That works great. And then you just find an interesting way to dismount the ball. Now another pull forward method, we're talking in core about how a pull modal is great, but also these very specific rollers. Some people use them for rolling on the muscles, but this is a great ab work. And I'll show you a tabletop version of it as well as the full forearm plank version of it. So here is the roller right behind the area of the knee. I'm going to come into, here's my hands down tabletop, pulling forward. It stays between my knee and my shins. As you can see, I'm just rounding my back a little bit. And if I put my forearms down, coming forward, rounding my back a little bit. Okay. Now if I want to go deeper into this, and so the further my arms are away from the roller, the more effort there's going to be. I can go all the way out to a plank and pull forward and come back. And so that, whew, that's some work. So the longer the lever arm, the greater the force. So when my legs and arms are close together, less force. When my legs and arms are farther apart, more force. And that's one of the ways to regulate how much effort you're creating with that. So that's good. So these two devices, but as I said, if you don't have it, the forearm plank into the crunch that we did in round 1 is a great method for that. And then after we've done that, another chance for us to ramp up our circulation, our intensity interval there. And now we're ready to work our wrist again. And so this time again, I'm going to go back to a weight that's not quite as heavy as I did with the bicep muscles. So I'm sitting and I'm going to have a palm up position, but here again, I want to isolate the wrist. I'm going to tilt forward and I'm just going to have my elbows on my knees. I'm holding and I've got my feet separated so in case I drop the weight, it doesn't hit the toe. Roll the weight down into the fingers and then I pull and lift. Now, a lot of times when we're making that final lift, there may be a little bit of a swaying to the left or the right. In order to notice that, you'd have to actually look at your wrist and see, is the bar tilting toward the little finger or toward the thumb? Probably more toward the little finger, but if I can hold it so it's not doing that, I force my arm into action that it is not as strong as doing. But don't create discomfort. So if it's just more for you to tilt just a little bit, just let that happen. It's not as significant right now with this. We're already doing a lot with it. So you'll feel a nice little activation. And then when you're ready, you'll switch over to the second side, palm up, rolling down, and then nice activation. You can feel a very nice stretch on this this back side. There's an effect going all the way down to the elbow. This is one of the treatments for agitation on the outside edge. Tennis elbow is what it gets called. That inflammation, that tenderness on the outside edge of the elbow. This wrist curl is a classic treatment for that kind of issue. And we could say it's preventative too, because we're stretching the extensor side of the forearm, which is what ties into this outer edge of our elbow there. And there we go. So we've completed our second round when we complete our wrist work. And we've calmed and our heart rate came back down again. So we're ready now to begin our third round. And we're going to be doing the deadlift again. Now, you can use weights. I have a weighted bar. Some of you may have acquired some equipment. This is a bar that has some hand weights attached to it, and that gives the action just a little bit more here. that in that position. There we go. So I'm going to do the deadlift holding this with some weight. And you can hold weights by your side. Legs separated out a little wider than hip distance. So we come down and forward, and the arms just hang. I'm not trying to pull or do anything with them, just hanging. And that's adding to the stretch in the legs. I bend the knees, I look forward, I press the heels, I come up, pushing the pelvis forward. It doesn't require a lot of weight to make a change in something like this that's pretty significant. And so that's more of a way that it's done, different style of weights in the classic Olympic weight training. But as I said, any pair of weights that you have, you can create the action just by holding the weights beside you. Let them come down, bend, and then come back up. All right? So it's 1, 2, 3. It's really hard to be patient when we're tired. The body wants to do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You know, get it over with. Try not to. Try not to. And if you said, I will do X number of those, 3 of those, 7 of those, but I'm not going to do all 10. That is fine, because maybe at the end you're just going to go back into simple heels pushing away. Good morning. All right. So that's always okay to go back to something that's a little less intense in the third round where you've really pushed yourself in. And you know, the thing is, you're the only one that knows your intensity. You're the only one that knows how hard you've been working. You're the only one that can make you work that hard. And so you're either having a super intense day today, or a more moderate intense workout today, or a less intense workout today, because you're the one who's designing it. Because within any workout is an opportunity for us to have all of that just by focusing ourselves a little differently. All right, now it's the crawl. So we had the different crawls at the wall. You can mix and match. Here's the bear crawl. Okay. Here's the gorilla. All right. Here is, I'll go forward. Okay, so it's, oops, a little different there. Opposite arm and leg. Okay, and then I will go backward with my gorilla. And then I will go forward with my gorilla. And I will go backward with my bear crawl. So, you know, I'm mixing it up and my legs are saying, what the heck are you doing to me? Because that's where I feel, just right in here. Now, you may feel it differently. You may feel it in your chest. And it's okay. Wherever we're feeling it is an area that the action is being concentrated. And so it's not unusual for that to be different from person to person based on what are already the strengths that you have. And so if you're not feeling it where I'm saying that I feel it, it's fine. And if your heart rate doesn't go up, well, my goodness, you must be cardiovascularly extremely fit in your actions, because even the lightest amount of movement is moving the upper and lower body. And we're basically doing controlled leaps with that gorilla, or just, you know, strategic movement of the body in a crawling motion, which is what we did when we were infants. But it's been a couple of years since then, and we've gotten out of the habit of it. So you crawl to your satisfaction, not necessarily a number count, just to the point where you're saying, yeah, I did enough of that to feel like I did it, and that was good. And then it's time for us, when you're ready, we will do the biceps again. So for this one, it's going to be reverse curl, and so I'm choosing deliberately less intense weight, less weight than I had before, because this is not a posture of the arm that we normally use. And so it's going to be a palm turned down posture. And I'm going to do it as a short arm action. Remember when I said longer means more intense, shorter distance less intensity. So we're deliberately putting things in our favor so we can come up to speed with this, because the forearm is really going to be involved. Now the elbow comes into the side. I'm starting out already with a 90-degree bend. I'm just coming up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Still nice and slow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we just go back and forth with that. And just even the grip of the hand to the weight is part of the consideration. That's helping our wrists, it's helping our hands. So every part of this is working to make a body that's more strong and more stable. And of course, we're uplifted in our chest as we're seated. And so we modify, we adapt. By the way, if you're ever doing one of these repetitive, bicep or whatever, and you say, I cannot continue, I would rather turn my arm in a different direction. Just do it as a hammer. Just do it. Just work. Or go down in the amount of weight, because you can just continue to work. Let's just say you had another weight that was lower and you said, nah, I'm going to switch to that other weight. Good. So that you keep the body in motion, even if it's a little less intense. But if you can bear to do it and work it with this, and there's nothing other than fatigue, then work that. If that's where you're at today, work it for that intensity. And when you've done one side, hey, good news, you got the other side. So elbow right in there so that that's the pivot point. I don't want my arm moving forward or backward in a way that's just, wherever it is, that kind of action. Nope, not at all. I'm keeping it very specific so that I have a limited number of things that my body has to deal with. Now, I would say most of us develop a desire to do very particular exercise, a very particular way, okay? So we want a certain exercise and perhaps not another one. That's just because that seems more the right way for us. It works better for us. We like it better. It's perfectly fine to do it the way that you like the best, especially at first. But once something gets boring, old, no longer a struggle to do it, it's time to change it up a little bit. Maybe that's when we switch over to the new thing, to reignite the actions of our body. And that's great. Okay, so we've got our bicep. Now, I'm going to show you back extension. And this is going to use a physio ball. Now, if you don't have a physio ball, you can use the other extension positions that we were creating. I'm going to make sure my knees are very comfortable, so you can use a mat, but I'm just going to have one right here, toss down a bolster, so that my feet have to be on a wall. Knees have to be nice and happy. And I'm going to be placing myself over the ball in such a way that my pelvis is pushing into it. Now, my heels are touching that wall. My feet are firmly on it. I'm grounding. And the first time I do it, I'm just going to, push with my arms part way and bring my hands onto the ball and then come the rest of the way up. And there's an extension that I'm elongating. And I'll just keep my hands on the ball, come down, and then I'll push. I'm sort of tractioning my body forward. And it's in part my arms and in part my back. And that might feel really good because it is elongating. Your arms are working. Okay. Now the one that I can do that the arms don't work as much is I have the arms out here. And then I start to lift and I keep the ball in place. And you got to make sure if you're going to do this one that the heels do stay on the wall. The pelvis is pressing and the hands right here stop that ball from shooting forward. And that you're not experiencing any jamming. So this is a good one to pull in the belly and do this during an exhale. Get the heels pushing so those seat muscles support you. So there's a group of muscles. You can can vary between the ones. If you want to come up higher, you just create more of a lift. So you could do it as a mostly no support until the very end, and I get the last part of the lift. There. Or do it all as a supported extension. Love this. This is a really good one. And one of the reasons, multiple reasons to have a physio ball. They're so good. They're such a good thing. Good. Okay. Back extension. Now the crunch. I showed you a couple of other things to do with the physio ball and that foam roller. And still, we might just be doing a crunch at the wall without having one of those little gadgets. Or you may have a gadget like these. It's a roller wheel. It can be done on a bare floor, but I like to have a lot of padding under the knees because that's definitely a technique. So a lot of people do this and they roll out like that and they come backward, and that really does not target the core. In order to target the abdominal core, you come forward, and instead of your arms moving forward, your pelvis moves forward. The arms are right into the shoulders, and you crunch, rounding back, coming back. So you're forward and crunch. It's a tough one. It is. What is probably a little more likely in your life, I'll get this out of the way, is something like a towel, or some of you have some yoga spots. And yoga spots have this towel side of them. So if I'm doing it with the yoga spots, it's basically the same technique that I used with the ab roll. My pelvis is forward and my arms are under my shoulders, and boy, that floor is going to look real shiny after a bit of this. And I've got a towel of some sort. And of course, on a carpeted floor. But furniture movers might have a slick surface. That could work. Here I am with this little yoga towel. So that will clean your floor nicely. So, useful. But there could be just the forearm plank into the crunch action that I showed in the first round. You might, or the second round too, you might want to do that action as well. So all of those targeting, instead of the extensor region, targeting the flexor region, a nice matchup of action, and really has our body, again, potentially, depending on what you're doing, it could be a big cardiovascular activity. And when we're ready to, it's the final work with our wrists. So we're going to sit again. We're going to use our way of going down even lower, the reverse curl for the wrist, the reverse curl for the bicep muscle. Might be a little more difficult. So I'm going to turn, make sure my feet are out of the way, palm down. I'm going to roll down and pull and then come up more than level. Doing my best to keep this bar and the bones of my forearm lined up, and doing everything I can to make sure that my elbow is not trying to bend more or less, and I'm letting it happen in the wrist, that my spine is being pulled forward, that my spinal joints are strung like, pearls on a string. My space between my shoulder blades is happy and wide. And the heart rate is now recovering from all of the action, and we're concentrating on working this area of the forearm that is an unusual thing. This is more of a cross training for our wrist than some of the other exercises. And when you've done one side and you're ready for it, then you do the other side. So you roll and then you create a reversed curl action at your wrist. And so overall, the feeling that we should have at the end of a workout would be fatigue and a sense of accomplishment, a positive energy for ourselves. We did it. We got through it. We're tired. We can rest. And so we begin the rest phase by doing a warm down. And the warm down could be practically anything. I like to use twists because the spine has been involved. You can come directly down onto the floor. But remember, if you don't want to be down on the floor, you can do a little bit more of this kind of twisting, which feels pretty good, and you can sort of feel the areas that you've been working. And you can also do across the body twists like so. And so that's good. You can be on your back, pulling your knees into your chest. If you have a physio ball, you can be on your back with your legs on that ball. One of the key reasons I got a physio ball in the first place was for this very movement right here. It's like, yeah, nice stuff. But if you don't have any device like that, you can rock the knees in whichever way you'd like to. So spend some time, if you need to stretch your hamstrings, re-lengthen, and what are you gonna eat in the next hour? That's key, because you just sort of paid a hefty price for enhancing your body, and if you do the right things, you get more out of this workout than if you fail to do something like eat protein, 30 grams in the hour. What a good boy you are. Oh, look at you. Look at you. Look at you. And so there may be some questions that you have, some comments about the way things are affecting you in the class, etc. It's a good time. We can talk right now if you prefer. You can do it privately with me through a text or email or call me on the phone.